Almost none of us get enough prebiotics through our normal diet. 95% of adults don't get enough fiber in their diets. We all need to get a lot more because a good portion of it is going to have a prebiotic effect.
Meet Marc Washington, a health and wellness executive and founder of Supergut, the leading gut health nutrition brand.
I have here my prebiotic bar, add to anything fiber mix. I also have like the shake itself.
Fitness is so important to an overall health, but at the end of the day, nutrition plays an even bigger role. The health of your digestive tract impacts your mental health, things like sleep, mood, mental clarity, and energy.
What about people who build their diet on processed or even fast food? Welcome, everyone, to another episode of Unlock Your Potential. Jeff Lerner, your host, always so excited to be back with you, having amazing conversations with amazing human beings. And I know I act excited every episode. It's not like I'm ever like, well, today we couldn't find someone too amazing, but we'll settle. No, it's like always amazing, right? So my histrionics are sort of like eye rolling at this point. But that said, this guy I'm extra excited about. Marc Washington is a seasoned health and wellness executive and the founder and CEO of truly one of my favorite companies, Supergut, an emerging gut health nutrition brand. He has dedicated his career to helping people lead healthier lives. I feel like this is veering infomercially, Marc, so I might have to pull it back. Like I wasn't paid to say any of this. I just genuinely love your product. But welcome, Marc. Welcome to the show.
Thanks so much for having me, Jeff. I really appreciate the kind words.
Yeah, no, I am glad you're here. And as I was sharing with you before we started, I truly am a fan and a consumer. I'm going to hold up the evidence of that. I just grabbed this out of my pantry this morning. I have here my Supergut add to anything fiber mix that I do often mix with my protein shakes.
That's great.
I have here my Supergut prebiotic bar. This is the chocolate one. There's also a peanut butter one. I probably eat one of these a day.
Awesome. Me too.
There's also
me too. There's also a strawberry one too.
Oh, I'm missing out. Apparently, I'm like a chocoholic, man. You get me with anything with chocolate. But I will say, I long ago had a nutritionist basically swear me off bars of any sort.
Yeah. And
I have noticed this is kind of esoteric maybe, but I have noticed a movement in the bar industry to like renaturalize bars. There's bars now that have like peanut butter as the base or dates as the base. And it's not just like 19 chemicals you can't pronounce and stuff. But basically this was the first bar product that I went back to as a staple after having sworn off all bars for like 20 years. And then I also have like the OG. This seems like it would be like your OG product, right?
OG.
The shake itself. So I'm stocked up, Marc. I have so many questions, and I just would love to get right into the story. Why don't you just, because I did a bunch of research. Somebody sent me a Supergut link, and I went deep. Maybe you could give like the 60-second commercial of what this is.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think you hit at the high level that Supergut is a gut health nutrition brand, right? But we take a pretty different approach to nutrition and frankly to gut health. We focus on prebiotic-based superfoods that feed your gut, right? And that's what prebiotics are, like literally the food, the nutrients that the bugs in your gut, the good bugs that they need to keep you healthy, right? And so that starts with good digestion, good gut health regularity, but it actually extends beyond that. Like one of the biggest benefits beyond gut health is actually appetite control and satiation. You can probably vouch for this. Like, the products actually keep you really full, like a lot longer. That helps kind of avoid unhealthy habits and cravings and snacking and so forth. But they also stabilize your blood sugar and they help improve energy and mood and even sleep. We've seen so many different effects of what we've done because the gut really is the foundation for better health. We've actually done a clinical study on the products to show just how much they work. But the science is great and the function's great, but I really believe in the power of food, like to heal. And so, but in order to do that, it also has to taste great, right? I mean, people want to enjoy their food. And so we make the 3 different products, like you showed, shakes and bars and a prebiotic, powder supplement. And we're really focused on making them great tasting so that people can actually make a habit out of them and continue to use them again, because that's the only way that you're actually going to get those, great health benefits that I talked about, is if it's something that you regularly consume as part of your diet. So that's the thing that we do at Supergut. Those gut health superfoods are incredibly functional, but that also we believe most people agree with this, that really tastes great as well.
Yeah, my business partner is actually the one that sent me the link, and it's been probably at least 2 years, and him and I both consume your product on a daily basis still. Awesome. 2 years later. So, awesome. And there are not, and I've tried, I mean, like, I'm kind of a biohacker dilettante, I'm a sucker, right? Like, I'll try just about anything. I should show you it's in my car, but I carry a baggie of vitamins and supplements around with me that I take throughout the day. Yeah. But most things I don't stick with. Stuff like this, I rarely stick with, because you just sort of drift. But this one has caught in my life and my partners too, because it, like you said, it actually is like, it doesn't feel like you're having to suffer through something that's good for you.
That's exactly it. Like, literally what you just described was part of the ethos for why I created this and how. Like, so thank you very much for reinforcing that, because that is incredibly intentional in how we've gone about creating the business and the products.
So you talked about why you created it and how. A huge part of our audience is in the early stages of an entrepreneurial pivot in their life. A lot of people come from my platform, Mantra. And so there's a lot of people that love hearing stories of entrepreneurs getting from 0 to 1 or 0 to 10 or 0 to Supergut. And so I wonder if, you could share, like how did you veer into this? And I will say, I'm also just going to leave this here. So at some point in the next 51 minutes and change or whatever we have, if you could help me understand the difference between prebiotics, probiotics, and postbiotics in like simple enough terms that it'll stick in my mind. But first, sorry to ask 2 questions at once, but first let's hear the Marc Washington Supergut story.
Got it. Yeah, absolutely. So I founded this company about 4 years ago. And so there's 2 interesting aspects. One is I'm actually new to entrepreneurship, like to being an entrepreneur. Like, this is the first venture that I have started, especially, from scratch. However, I'm a bit late to the game as an entrepreneur, like you call it the second or third chapter of my career, because I've actually been an executive, right, throughout my career, but always in this space of health and wellness and all things better for you. It's what gets me going in the morning. Like, I very much, could call myself a health optimizer, myself trying all sorts of new things, try to keep myself fit, both physically and nutrition, et cetera. And I really found my calling when, patterning my career in this path, and that, helping other people lead healthier lives is my North Star. And so I've been fortunate to start my career in this space, or everything from food and beverage to supplements to fitness and wellness, as well as all been a part of the mix for me. But up until now, it's all been in executive roles. And so I'd say I cut my teeth early on at a business called The Wonderful Company. It's about a $5 billion privately held healthy food and beverage company. So they own a lot of healthy food and beverage, agricultural products. So they own Fiji water. They own Palm Wonderful. They also are big in almonds and pistachios and citrus fruit as well. And so that's where I really cut my teeth in general management and served a bunch of different roles for them over time. But from there, I went to Beachbody, which is mostly known, at least historically, for at-home fitness. So a lot of popular programs that you would have heard of, like P90X and Insanity and T25, et cetera. But what we really scaled the business on, and I joined as the president, chief operating officer, was in nutrition, a superfood health shake, right, called Shakeology. Because we know that fitness is so important to an overall health, but at the end of the day, nutrition plays an even bigger role in sort of the outcome of your personal health. And we, saw that and actually really scaled that business largely in nutrition, but obviously combining nutrition with the fitness programs as well. From there, I actually ran a supplement company called Irwin Naturals. So more maybe some of the pills that you have in your little baggie, like they focus on herbal-based soft gel pills before deciding to start this. And so one of the things that the common threads in my experiences was, although I wasn't the entrepreneur, I was an executive, I was partnering. I was essentially like the right hand to the entrepreneur, but seeing them like already at scale and helping them scale the business further. And so I got a front row seat right, to see some really successful entrepreneurs at that stage, right, in their lives, in their career, and how they went about doing that, both creating product, building teams, and connecting with people to create healthier habits, as well as specifics of the business model of, online versus retail, subscription oriented, et cetera. And so I was taking notes the entire time. I didn't necessarily know that my path was to become an entrepreneur, because I got pretty good, right, at being the right hand, and I really enjoyed it, and I thought that was it. But there was a fire building in me. Like, and it was like, at some point, I feel like it's going to be my turn to take a shot. So it definitely was building in me. I would say a big part of what caused me to take the leap, I generally describe it as a head meets heart moment. The head part was all the notes, all the learnings that I had built over time, wanting to put that to use, and also feeling like there was both a need and an opportunity, business opportunity, to create a differentiated business, right? That could build on those experiences, but that could affect people in a more significant way, right? And so knew that there was a business need, and I felt like I had the skills from the experience to do it. But why me, and why now, and why start this? That was really more the heart, right? And so a big part of my drive was something that could have more impact. I love better for you products, but despite all the advances in nutrition and technology and healthcare, we're less healthy than ever, right, as a society. And a big part of my motivation for wanting to do something about it was actually, it goes back to a personal story. It's actually my little sister, Monica, who struggled with her health, with her weight, with her blood sugar, blood pressure, and before passing away far too young, which really shook me to my core. And that honestly motivated me to do something about it. And it's a big part of why I decided to start this company from scratch. I felt like it's my purpose here is to make a difference and to create, a business that could have some impact, but on public health, but do it in an accessible, approachable way through food that tastes good, right? And that was a big part of my motivation to turn that inspiration into a positive, and honoring my sister's legacy by helping so many other people with products that I think Monica would have loved, and frankly could have, changed her trajectory as well. And so that, I think, is what got me to really tap into that entrepreneurial bug that had been inside me, to scratch that itch that had, been building up over time, and to throw my hat in the ring, even at this later stage in my career, and start this, take this crazy idea and start this business brand new from scratch. And that was about 4 years ago.
So you probably don't know anything of what I'm about to say, but let me just start by saying thank you, because you have so beautifully, and I'm actually going to ask some questions to pressure test this statement, but from here, it appears you are beautifully demonstrating my entire methodology around entrepreneurship. And just as a little bit of context, well, actually, let me ask the questions, then I'll get the context.
Okay.
Then we'll connect all the dots.
All right.
So at the time that you decided to become an entrepreneur, take the leap, as you put it, you obviously professionally, you were successful. You were probably financially reasonably stable.
Mm-hmm.
You were well informed. You felt like you were positioned to go, you had gotten the knowledge to do the things that you wanted to do entrepreneurially. Physically, you seem like a guy that takes care of yourself. Obviously, health has been a lifelong passion, or at least an adult lifelong passion. So is it true to say that you were like physically in a good, healthy place, operating with a stable, consistent routine for the maintenance of health?
100%. Like, and it was, and that's not just surface, like it literally defines a big part of who I am.
Okay.
It's maintain stable health, both, physically, obviously, but, mentally, overall,
mind, body, and soul, the whole
mind, body, soul, 100%. Yeah. So I absolutely is at that place when deciding to make that leap.
Okay. And then can I ask you a little bit about your personal life? What was your personal life and your relationships like at the time you decided to make this leap?
Yeah. So that's also a big part of who I am and what I value. Our relationships broadly, and I'd say specifically my family, my beautiful wife. We have 3 kids as well, and they've always been the main priority, regardless of how successful I am, how busy I am. At the end of the day, the most important things in my life have always been my wife and my 3 kids. And so you can imagine when I'm even thinking of making such a huge leap, in my career and life, one thing was clear, and I'd say has become even more clear, is that that's not a solo journey. Like you have family, friends, close ones around you. It's a collective effort, right? Because everybody's in, and that's very, very apparent, especially now that I'm in it. And so I obviously, as soon as I started having this inkling, I discussed it in depth with my wife. And the first reaction was, say, what? Like, are you serious? Are you crazy? Like, we do have a great life. Like, you're well paid and we're comfortable and you're really good at what you do. Are you sure that you want to really go all the way back? Right. And so, but we had the very open and frank conversation. And, after, I guess, looking into my eyes, she knew that this was the thing. Like, I was, one, serious, but that this was important, right, for me, and a big part of why I was here. And frankly, she actually helped me connect with my wife, because at first I was like, I don't know what it is that's called, and it was literally through conversation with my wife. She was like, that's Monica talking to you. And so she helped connect me with my wife. And although the first reaction was like, are you serious and crazy? She was absolutely 100% supportive and on board, and that was a huge part of giving me license and feeling good about going headfirst into this venture.
So wonderful. Thank you. Not that there was a pass fail grading, but like, thank you for passing, because again, you're
right. Okay.
you're validating my thesis here. So let me explain just very briefly the mechanism, that sort of like the fundamental mechanism that Entre teaches, my education platform, and that is like I've anchored my whole life to, as like, I'm here to evangelize this for people. Mm-hmm. And it's a methodology we built around what we call 4 Ps. There's the 3 Ps and the 4th P. And the 3 Ps are physical, personal, and professional, mm-hmm. Which are the orientation of those questions. And the 4th P is purpose. Mm. And, so I have thousands of people, and you look at the world today, and you have thousands of people that are, let's call it, discontent, unfulfilled, constrained in terms of their options or whatever. And they're looking for a better way. And what we say is, okay, entrepreneurship is likely that better way. Like, in terms of the freedom you want, the self-determination, but ultimately, like you described, and this is why I love it, it's not like you struck out because you're like, oh, I think I can make more money doing that. You said, I think I can have more impact. Absolutely. Doing that ultimately the life of impact that leads to the fulfillment that people want, which, by the way, the word fulfillment comes from the Old English word for destiny or prophecy, mm-hmm. meaning I don't think you'll be fulfilled unless you're doing what you were destined or prophesied to do, in my lexicon, i.e. by your creator, but by whatever universal source you want to attribute that to. Yeah. But for that to be ready for that, these things have to line up. First of all, so it's like, if you're feeling this call or this pull or this push, maybe because you're dissatisfied with what you're currently in, instead of just jumping in, actually look at your life physically, personally, and professionally, and get those pieces in really good working order. Because once you have a stable foundation of well-managed physical health, mind, body, and soul, mm-hmm. you have well-managed personal relationships in your life that are reciprocal and have clean communication, and they're not toxic, and they're not draining your energy or creating distraction or loss, squandering of emotional and energetic capital. And you have a professional life that is at least financially like at a stable baseline. Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Well, because entrepreneurship has so much to do with your professional life, but basically, really, it's physical and personal. Like, get those houses in order, and once you have that stability, then there's this and we teach it. For you, it was a conversation with your wife to understand that it was the legacy of your sister, mm-hmm. whispering in your soul. Mm-hmm. We actually take them through a process to actually go back through their life journey and figure out the thread that is orienting them toward their purpose. Because I happen to believe that, whatever created us always gives us the seeds of our purpose through our life experience. Yeah. Then you're ready. You're ready to go crush it as an entrepreneur, because you can orient towards something that isn't just monetary, but it's purpose-based, and you're doing it from a stable foundation of the physical, personal, and professional, platform that you're going to push off of.
Yeah.
And that is like what we teach people. And you literally just, you see where I was connecting the dots. You basically just told that story.
Jeff, I love that so much. I love the framework that you have created around this. I would say I didn't enter in with a framework, but that speaks to me. Speaks to me deeply because it actually, like you said, it actually matches. I guess what ended up being my framework for how I thought about this, and I think having that rubric is so important because anybody can go out and start anything any day. The odds of success are very, very small, right? And I think the framework that what you've laid out are things that tilt the odds of success in your favor, right? And by success, I'm not just defining it by monetary, but by fulfillment and by, having energy and being, personally fulfilled. Like it tilts those in your favor because this is a really, really hard thing. Right? And so having those elements that you describe, I think really, start to give you some advantage in this very challenging pathway that's called entrepreneurship. So that resonates with me profoundly.
Can I ask a follow-up question?
Yeah, please.
Are you happier now than you were 5 years ago?
I am happier, and it's fascinating. I have been more fulfilled than I've ever been in my life since starting this journey. Mm-hmm. Now, I'm also realistic. I keep it real. I am more stressed than I've also ever been.
Yeah, that my next question was going to be.
It's fascinating to have both of those, during the same period. But yes, I absolutely am happier, more.
My next question was going to be: are you richer now than you were 5 years ago?
Absolutely not. Like financially, no. Like there's significant trade-off.
So I say that to illustrate what I believe deeply, which is that there is no amount of professional success, financial, coupled with, you look at Maslow's hierarchy, right? You get up to that fourth level and it's about esteem, right? And I mean, you were obviously an esteemed person, COO Beachbody, right? I think you said, you were not lacking for people telling you that you're doing a good job. And, I even for people envying you probably, but there's just no amount of that is a replacement for really understanding what your purpose is and why you're on this earth.
I agree with that.
And that's why you're happier now, even though you're more stressed out and have less money. Right?
Yes, I mean, 100%.
And I calculate life. I really only ask myself one question. Am I going to, how much regret am I going to have when I die? It's the only, I have tried to create a discipline in my life that simply asks that one question. And so by that lens, do you feel that now having ventured into a purpose-driven, commercial cause, you will have less regret on your deathbed?
I absolutely do believe so. I do.
Thank you.
The dream is yet fulfilled, but I am absolutely 100% confident that is the case.
Okay. Thank you. Again, we can conclude this segment of using Marc as a case study for my entire worldview. Thank you. Beautifully represented.
I'm glad we lined up there.
Yeah. Oh, I know. That would have been really hard for me if you were like, well, actually, I was going through a custody battle and
it's all about the money, right?
Yeah. And I just try to get filthy rich. Okay. Yes. Okay. Beautiful. I hope that the audience hears that and sees it, how wonderfully that's laid out. I mean, I have seen this process with hundreds and hundreds, really thousands and thousands of people at this point. So, okay, now let's get into back into the passion and the specifics here. So you had this calling based on your sister to take on gut health. And I mean, I'm sure you and I align, gut health is one of the great untapped frontiers of human health.
100%. And it's a big part of why orienting is going in that direction. I would say, even though I was deep in the space of health and wellness, I didn't have a full picture as to just how true that statement was, right? I was like, yeah, we had probiotics in the shakes and it's important. And do you want to poop regularly? No, I get it. But I literally, until really diving into the research, I didn't know just how foundational gut health is for overall health. Like,
can you enroll us a little deeper into that? Like, talk
Yeah,
about the
yeah.
mechanism, how the gut really is the seat of even the mind itself, and like just
100%.
get everybody on that same page.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when it comes down to it, well, first, what your gut, we're literally talking about your digestive system, and in particular, your large intestine. And it is home to what's called the gut microbiome. And it is this unbelievably complex collection of microorganisms, like literally trillions of them, largely bacteria, that reside in your gut. And these little things have an outsized role in keeping us healthy and frankly, preventing disease. And when I say healthy, it's physically, it's digestion, but it's all aspects of health, which is kind of hard to believe, but we know this now because of breakthroughs in technology, like our ability to profile and analyze what's happening in your gut, and to be able to see, and through lots of research and clinical trials now, to be able to see these correlations and causation between what's happening in your gut relative to what's happening in many different dimensions of health. And so what used to be thought of is that, your gut was important for digestion, obviously, which is absolutely true, but that's like first base, right? What we know now is like second base, third base, right? I mean, that, these systems that it taps into and that actually has a role in modulating have a significant impact on things beyond digestion. So that includes your metabolic health. So the way that you process food and control your appetite and therefore manage weight, the way your insulin response, and so therefore your blood sugar levels, your cardiovascular health, cholesterol, blood pressure. It also connects to, it's really fascinating, many different aspects of your mental health. There's actually a bidirectional communication that happens between your brain and what's happening in your gut, right? And those microbes. And there's literally neurotransmitters kind of going back and forth, that the health of your digestive tract impacts your mental health, right? So things like sleep and mood and mental clarity and energy, but also vice versa. It is literally bidirectional, like your mental state has a significant impact on the health of your digestive tract. And so many might experience this. I know I've experienced this, like when I was one of the most stressed, like I had a lot of things going on and there were specific things that were really stressing me out, is also the period where I had the most significant digestive discomfort and disorder in my life, right? And so I literally have felt it and seen it firsthand. But there's actually, a good rational explanation for it, and that really is the gut microbiome and this gut-brain axis. And so these are all just some examples that show, like, just all the different various ways that the gut and what's happening in the health of your gut has just this outsized role in your overall health. And so now the question is, what do you do about it, right? And how do you orient yourself in a way that can give you a solid platform for gut health and therefore overall health? And that's where, Supergut, comes in.
So, okay. So let's actually follow that, keep going with that, right? So you decide to take on gut health. You've obviously honed in on a specific, like you said, the prebiotics.
Yes.
And most people are much more familiar with the term probiotics. Yeah, I think the prebiotics. So you honed in there. Like, can you talk us through your discovery and decision process around how to orient this company, why you've taken it on in the way that you have, and what you think makes that different?
Yeah, absolutely. And I'll actually tie it back to the question that you raised earlier, is just definitional. So I think that provides some helpful context, just in layman's terms. What are prebiotics, probiotics, and even postbiotics? So most people that think about gut health are familiar with probiotics, or at least that's what's talked about the most. And what probiotics are intended to be live bacteria that you're adding into your gut microbiome. Like they need to be alive, one, right, for them to be effective. And for them to be effective, they also have to survive digestion, right, which is a harsh process, to actually make it into your gut, right, to add to the trillions of microbes that you already have there. So the idea is like adding more good bugs. That's what probiotics are supposed to do. And you get them, through supplements, through pills, powders. But frankly, large part, the most effective way to actually get probiotics in it is actually through diet, right? Through fermented foods like kimchi and kefir and sauerkraut, things of that nature, that actually have been shown clinically to be more consistently effective at adding to the colony of good bugs in your gut relative to most probiotic supplements. A lot of them aren't really doing a whole lot because a lot of them don't actually survive digestion. But that's the idea of a probiotic. It's supposed to be good bugs adding more to your gut. Now, prebiotics, on the other hand, so think of prebiotics as the food for the good bugs in your gut. It's literally what they need to thrive, multiply, and survive, and produce really important byproducts that are, responsible for keeping you healthy. So think of like prebiotics as like the fertilizer for your garden, right? You gotta feed it in order for it to operate the way that it's supposed to. And prebiotics are largely found in high fiber plant foods. So a lot of vegetables, leafy greens, fruits have fiber, legumes, beans, whole grains, like different high fiber foods. Not all of them have a lot of have prebiotics, but that's where most prebiotics are found. And so think of that as the food for the good bugs. So in other words, the probiotics, they actually need prebiotics to do their job, right? If they're starved and they really can't do their job. And here's the key, and this is a big part of why we focus on the prebiotic side, is literally almost none of us get enough prebiotics through our normal diet as what we should, as what is recommended to have a healthy gut and to have overall health. Like the stats say, literally 95% of adults don't get enough fiber in their diets. 95%. So that's pretty much all of us, right? And that's, again, where you get the prebiotics. And so this is the gap that we aim to fill by making it much more convenient, easy to get like the highest functioning, most powerful, but also the highest tolerable forms of prebiotics in your diet. And so obviously when I honed in on that, we found like some of the most powerful types, a specific class of prebiotics called resistant starch that's very resistant to digestion, which means it really effectively gets to your gut to feed those good bugs. But we created our own blend with this resistant starch and other forms of prebiotics that have a synergistic effect that we then go out and put into our superfoods, into our shakes, into our bars. And then we also sell that as a standalone powder as well, so that you can turn anything into a gut healthier version of it. Now, the last thing I'll say.
Go ahead. No, please.
I'm going to define postbiotics really quickly. And so postbiotics are the least known of the biotics, so to speak. And what postbiotics are is essentially the byproduct of what happens when you feed probiotics. When you feed them prebiotics, the magic happens and they actually produce byproducts. And those byproducts are called postbiotics. And that's actually really, really important because that's the key. It's not just the bugs are just magical in and of itself. It's their action. It's what they do. And it's the byproducts they create that actually does enhance your gut health and does impact these overall systems. So those postbiotics are things like technical terms, but like short chain fatty acids. So things like butyrate and propionate are some of the specific names of some of those postbiotics, but they are really, really key. You're starting to see more supplements and even some therapeutics come out to try to bypass the system to feed you, postbiotics through supplement form, or to feed you even what postbiotics help create. So things like these breakthrough drugs like Ozempic and Wegovy, you probably heard of these weight loss drugs that are all the craze and taking over. They're highly, highly effective. These breakthrough weight loss drugs are actually, the next step after postbiotics. It's these, gut hormones that postbiotics help create called GLP-1. That's what those drugs are mimicking, right? It's like your body's natural mechanism in your gut to create these hormones that actually control appetite, make you feel fuller, and help keep weight off. That's what these breakthrough drugs are based on. But guess what? You have that system in your body. We're just not feeding it the right things. And so it's a big thing that we talk about now. It's like, yes, we realize that those are, effective. There are natural ways that don't have as many side effects and definitely aren't going to cost you as much money as these drugs, and more sustainable to help your body do what it's naturally intended to do in appetite control and weight management. And, the primary basis of that are prebiotics.
So it's kind of like if you were driving your car around and the brakes this is maybe doesn't even make sense because I'm not a car guy, but let's say you're driving your car around and the brakes keep wearing out because the alignment is off and it's like rubbing on the caliper. And so you just keep paying to fix your brakes.
Yeah.
But you never actually just restore the alignment of the car.
Yeah.
That would be, to me, metaphorically taking drugs to mimic the behavior or to replace or mimic postbiotics instead of just installing probiotics and feeding them prebiotics and letting your body do it on its own. Because similar to the example, it's probably causing other problems too, other than just appetite regulation.
That's a really good point. It actually, and the studies are showing now that it's unnatural. It's very, very effective at weight loss, right, and appetite control, but it's an unnatural approach, right? And so in some ways, it's causing side effects, but it also can dysregulate your gut, right, and can cause other issues. It's also starting to be part of the warning label on it. And then the other factor, I think why your analogy makes sense, is that it's not it's more of a Band-Aid solution. Right. And that if you don't heal the underlying cause, you're going to have to get your brakes repaired again and again and again. And same with these drugs. Like if you depend on them without actually changing your underlying habits, you need to stay on them essentially for life, right? Because if you ever stop, you haven't fixed the underlying kind of issues, that causing weight gain and lack of appetite control and blood sugar, et cetera. And actually the studies have shown you gain the weight back, right? And so that's the thing, is like, how do you actually fundamentally rewire your system in a way that goes to the root cause and in a sustainable way? And at the end of the day, right, it is nutrition, it is gut health nutrition, and you need to get the prebiotics into the system to create those postbiotics naturally.
Hey there, real quick, I just wanted to let you know, I have been concentrating a lot lately on providing tons of value to my text message community. This could be random thoughts. This could be letting you be the first to know about an event I'm planning or a special I'm running or a free training I'm hosting. Anyway, just shoot me a text to get subscribed. The number is 702-996-3926. Thanks so much. Let's get back to the podcast. So I want to touch on, you've helped clear up one question I had, but I didn't really think consciously that I had, which is like, I hear you talk. I say you. It's Supergut. I hear in their literature a lot of talk about this resistant starch, and I never really thought like resistant to what. Right. But it makes sense now. It's resistant to the digestive process because, assuming things go in the way you want them to, they don't get to the large intestine without first passing through the stomach. Right.
No, exactly. It's not the most appealing name because typically, right, in our language, resistant is a bad thing, right? Right. Like, it's something bad, and a resistant starch. Like, what is that? And so it's fascinating because this is a class of prebiotics that is actually, it's not brand new. It's been around for years. Frankly, our ancestors used to get tons of this, right? Because it's actually a type of prebiotic found in starchy plant foods like tubers and in leafy greens and legumes. And it used to be in much larger quantities than what we have now. And
I've heard unripened bananas.
That's right. Yeah, unripened.
That's why they're so much harder, is because they have
exactly
this.
Right.
This starch in them.
It's why they don't taste as good. Like they're very chalky. And we're talking deep dark green, like not even green like what you would get when you go to your grocery store, like on the tree green and processed in specific ways. And what's fascinating about a banana, and that's actually one of the sources we use, is that the chemical composition of a banana changes as it ripens, right? And so you have to get it when it's super deep dark green to be high in this resistant starch and these prebiotics that are actually resistant to digestion to feed the good bugs in your gut. Over time, bananas ripen, right? And they turn yellow and then eventually brown. And as that happens, that resistant starch is actually turning into sugar. And that's why bananas are so delicious, right? When they start to ripen, and when kind of all of us typically eat them, the texture is much better. They're significantly sweeter, and they're delicious. The only problem is now that resistant starch is sugar, and so instead of actually keeping your blood sugar levels lower, it actually spiking your blood sugar. And so that's another form of it. And resistant digestion, the resistance is actually a good thing, right? Because resisting digestion means it actually is getting into your gut. And that's why that's the class of prebiotics that we chose to focus on in our blend, because we wanted to make sure if we're going to help people get these prebiotics in their diet, let's find the most powerful forms that we can. And there's tons of clinical evidence on just how effective different forms of prebiotics, but especially this resistant starch, is on gut health and many different dimensions of health as well.
So partly to make sure that this doesn't sound like, which I swear it's not, that it doesn't sound like we just conspired to create an infomercial for Supergut. And also partly because, God willing, Mark might get hit by a bus. Let's certainly pray to the contrary. But
Please.
what else can somebody start putting into their diet other than Supergut? Obviously, we're not going to go pick little hard green bananas off trees. How else could somebody start nurturing their gut in this way?
Yeah, absolutely. And so you want to focus on, which I think is the biggest gap, I'd say, in our diet, in the overall, and frankly, I think this is the biggest thing missing from public health, is fiber, right? And so at the end of the day, the direction to just keep things simple is we all need to get a lot more fiber in our diet. And again, not all fiber is created equal, but it's all good for you. Like some fiber really is just around digestion, right? That's typically known, and kind of your grandma was right? When she was like, eat your beans, fiber's good for you, et cetera. She was right? She was on to something. She might not have done all of the scientific research, but that's true. That's the simplest thing that you can tell people, is to get more fiber in your diet. And because a good portion of it is going to have a prebiotic effect, and kind of to improve your gut and your overall gut health. And so that is, again, it's back to the good old leafy greens and vegetables. Plants have a decent amount of fiber. Nuts and beans and legumes have, good fiber. Whole grains have a good amount of fiber as well. So that's the main thing that we can point people to is, a high fiber diet is going to get a lot of these benefits. I think the challenge is, even though we've known generally that fiber is good for you, it still has resulted in none of us getting enough, right? And so that's why we want to complement your whole food, high fiber diet with ways to make it easy to make sure to fill that gap. And the stats, just one other stat, most of us, like I said, almost none of us get enough fiber. Most of us literally get half the amount. So we need a lot more, right? And that's not the easiest to do, to, 2x the amount of veggies in your diet every single day, right? So obviously the more the merrier, and I'm very much a proponent of healthy whole food diets, but that's why we can help complement, that healthy high fiber whole food diet with, with snacks and with, shakes, et cetera, that help close that fiber and in particular prebiotic fiber gap for you.
So, okay. So follow-up question then, I thank you for making it really clear, by the way, that like you've got the plants and you've got the fertilizer. I think that's a great metaphor.
Yeah.
And you're in the fertilizer business.
The fertilizer business, right? Exactly.
Okay. So are there people and a little bit of context, I went to this retreat one time that was entirely, it was a retreat that was ostensibly focused on the brain. And I had no idea until I got there what that really meant was they focused on the gut.
Interesting.
But I mean, to like use some language that everybody might be familiar with, like 95% of all the serotonin in your body, everybody knows serotonin, literally antidepressants are based around increasing levels of serotonin in your body, although they do a bunch of other wonky stuff too. Most of your serotonin comes from your gut.
Absolutely.
And it lives in your gut. So actually that's a fair question. Is serotonin a postbiotic?
Yeah. You could consider it postbiotic. I think technically it is what postbiotics regulate the production of. So it's not a postbiotic in itself, but it is what a postbiotic leads to, is production of serotonin and other neurotransmitters as well, in addition to.
So like most of the stuff this is what this retreat was based around, is that most of the stuff that determines how you feel on a daily basis, we think originates in our brain. It originates in our gut, and it's basically fed or served to our brain for utility.
Exactly.
So that whole retreat was based around getting your biome to basically come back to life. They said, look, you've got 1 trillion switches in your biome. Mm-hmm. And for most people, 900 billion of them are switched off.
Right.
And they had a supplementation regimen and meditation and all these different, holistic modalities to just switch all your biome signals back on. Mm-hmm. So that's my question is, are there people, since most people aren't going to pay what I paid to go to this kind of woo-woo retreat, are there people whose probiotic foundation is so compromised that essentially it'd be like pouring fertilizer on sand if they don't do something else?
Yeah, no, it's a really good question. And so I've been able to get educated on this from our chief medical advisor, who's a gastroenterologist, where we've had some of these conversations where like, we know that this works for the vast majority of folks. Like they've got the plants are there, that they're just turned off, right? So we just need to feed them. But there is, some portion of the population. I'd say the most pointed example I can give you are those who have gone through antibiotics, right? And so he calls it like when you have to do it, it's necessary, it's important to do when you're fighting disease and virus, et cetera. So not antibacterial, but when you do that, it literally is wiping out your gut microbiome, the diversity, the vibrance, the abundance. And so they're not just turned off, it's like they're gone for a while. He described it as like a bleached coral reef, right? And so just feeding a bleached coral reef isn't really going to turn it back on immediately. You actually have to repopulate, right? Whether through supplementation or, like I said, through fermented foods to sort of bring the coral back to life, right? So that then you can actually feed it the fertilizer, get back to a normal operating system. So I'd say that's one of the most extreme examples of where, the coral reef is just bleached. I'd say the other examples down from that, it starts to get into different forms of gastrointestinal diseases, right? Where just feeding, the mechanisms are just fundamentally broken. And it's not so simple as to just eat more fiber that's going to solve everything. And so when there are specific digestive disorders that require kind of more invasive treatments, so C. diff and, even, IBD and, things like Crohn's and so forth. Those, where diet absolutely can help, but sometimes if you eat the wrong things, they can absolutely cause, it to flare up, right? So there are some of those situations where just feeding it the things that normally work isn't going to be enough to resolve the situation. Those are the minority of cases, but they definitely do exist.
What about people who just basically build their diet on processed or even fast food?
Yeah. You should mean most of us, right?
Exactly.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And this the interesting thing is, so we talk about prebiotics, right? That's the food for the good bugs. So, and by the way, like in your microbiome, it's in this, state of, good bugs and bad bugs, right? I mean, so we talk about like the good bugs, the one that keep us healthy and disease prevention. There are bad bugs that do the opposite, right? That keep us down, right? And mentally, physically, disease, etc. Guess what the bad bugs eat is sugar and highly processed foods, like the things that we know inherently are bad for us generally. Literally, the reason why they're bad for us is the impact that they have largely on our gut microbiome, right? And leads to, it's called a state of dysbiosis. So imbalance, where the bad bugs are basically overtaking the good bugs, right? And so that is when you follow, unfortunately, the typical Western diet, which, is whether by design or a lot of it's literally systemic, right? I mean, it's just forced on us when, ultra processed food, fast food. I mean,
and it's served on a plate. It's served on a plate in most grade school cafeterias. I mean, it starts young.
Yeah, 100%. And so this is not. I think this is systemic, right? This isn't just a willpower, just making good decisions. That's truly systemic. That is literally impaired our overall health. And in particular, a lot of that is through the gut microbiome. And so, yes, you absolutely can help someone who has been on an ultra processed Western, high sugar, high carb diet. You absolutely can repair that. But the thing is, it's not an overnight thing. Because obviously we know that the prebiotics are going to be very, very key to overall health. But in that situation, in particular, we advise you need to start slowly, right? Because you have trained your body, and in particular your gut, that it desires specific things and it rejects other things. And so if you go dive head first into like not getting any fiber, into trying to get the daily recommended amount or much more in a day, your body will reject it, right? It literally, your stomach will turn, you'll blow up, right? It'll be a very, very uncomfortable transition. And so in that circumstance, and frankly, we tell our customers to start slowly, right? And so instead of having a full shake, have a half shake, even a quarter shake, just to start to introduce this goodness to your gut. So like these starved good bugs, like let's start waking them up, right? And do it in an approachable way that's not going to turn your system, get you very uncomfortable from a digestive standpoint. But the great thing is the human body is adaptive, right? It learns. And so as you can ramp up, you can teach your body, to desire the good nutrients and start to expect those. And so the good bugs start to increase and proliferate and start to expect more of, the good nutrients that it needs, prebiotics. And so you can ramp up from a quarter shake to a half shake to a full shake, and then you can get there. And that can typically take over the course of weeks, right? But it does depend on the individual, and in large part does depend on what the individual's diet patterns have been sort of throughout their lives, kind of how much they can take and how fast. But, you absolutely can get there. And like I said, what we're talking about now is the vast majority of us who have not followed, call it a high fiber diet that have fed your gut what it really needs to be.
So for the majority of us that aren't coming off of a massive round of antibiotics or don't struggle with a gastrointestinal disease or condition, whatever they're called,
Right.
It's not so much that all our good bugs are dead. It's that all our bad bugs are overfed and perhaps dominating our good bugs.
That's right. Yeah. And so you need to tilt that balance back in your favor.
Okay.
And the end of the day, a lot of it comes through food. A lot comes through other elements as well. So the treat you went to, it sounds like really fantastic because this is so interconnected, right? The health of your gut, between your mental health and your mind state and kind of your soul, they're all connected. So, meditating, having great relationships, going outside, getting sunlight, right? All of these are factors that affect your mental state that also affect your gut, in addition to obviously what you feed it and put into your body. So it absolutely is quite intricate and interconnected system.
So first of all, I'm going to give you a silly but maybe good idea for an advertising campaign. I'm picturing you like walking out with like dressed like Rambo or something with your stuff, talking to people about educating about the difference between the good bugs and the bad bugs in your gut. And then the music kicks in, bad bugs, what you gonna do? What you gonna do when we come for you? Bad bugs, bad. Yeah. So anyway, maybe the dorkiest moment in the history of this podcast.
But that's awesome. That's awesome.
I had to share.
We'll take that idea into consideration, Jack.
Okay, yeah. Put that in the file and see if it speaks to you someday.
We'll see.
So, okay, now on a more serious note, you mentioned you have a medical advisor, a gastroenterologist. I'm curious, your vantage point, his or her vantage point, like, I have never been to a doctor. Even like I've been to doctors with people that were going in to like deal with depression, let's say, as an example. Like if somebody comes to me depressed, I immediately go to gut health now based on everything I've learned.
Yeah.
First I go to the disclaimer of I'm not a doctor, and then I go to
yeah. Yeah.
But I mean, it seems like the medical establishment talking about, I don't know, is it resistant or just ignorant? But I mean, they are still not, you obviously have someone that is, but I mean, it doesn't feel like the establishment medicine is really talking about this. And I'm curious, why do you think that is? And if anything, what are you maybe trying to do about it?
Yeah, a really, really good question. We could talk about this for ways. I'll say it at a high level. One, absolutely acknowledging what you said. The medical establishment, in large part, is not there yet. I don't believe it's through an intentional bias against, nutrition and the role of gut health. I really do think it is through lack of the training and education. I'd say not just gut health, but frankly, nutrition in general. Right. I mean, it just is not part of the lexicon. I mean, I think, Chris, our gastroenterologist, he describes like the years and years that you put into the medical training and how the body works, et cetera. And then it's like a day on nutrition. Okay. And then next, right. And then moving on. So like literally understanding just how significant and profound a role that nutrition plays in overall health in so many different ways doesn't get its just due, right, in the course of the education and training of, our medical professionals. And so add on top of that, so that's just nutrition generally, but then add on top of that, the fact that what we're talking about is like that next level of sort of breaking research around the gut microbiome and its profound role. Like it is really cutting edge. And so there certainly is not a plethora of physicians out there that fully understand the connection between the gut and overall health, as well as kind of, food and its role in overall health as well. And so unfortunately, the vast majority of times, doctors go back to their training and essentially treat most things with, okay, exercise more, eat a little better, and here's your prescription, right? Next.
Yeah.
And so I think it's a shame, right? And frankly, we've even seen it in something that really gets me going. Someone will just not be educated or at least bother to go into the details as much. Someone literally, and we've seen this multiple times, will show our product and say, hey, you've been telling me to get my weight under control, to get my blood sugar. I've heard about this shake. I've heard they've got, this has really worked for a lot of people. Should I take this? And, I've many physicians have literally just turned it around, just looked at the total number of carbs in our shake and said, nope, it's too high carb. You shouldn't have this. That could, spike your blood sugar next. Without even understanding that not all carbs are created equal. Fiber is a carbohydrate. You need more fiber in your diet to kind of control your appetite, to stabilize your blood sugar, not less. You gotta at least know some of the basics that, you can't just look at a total carb number and say that it's good for you or bad for you. You have to understand what types of carbs to be able to make any form of recommendations. So yes, there is a real gap out there, and we're trying to do everything that we can, through Chris, through our scientific advisory board. A lot of it is ground roots efforts, and some of it is we actually have our customers, we arm them with information and say, hey, don't share this with your doctor, right? To just try to go one by one. We also try to do a lot of content out there as well to raise awareness, the collective awareness around what it is that we're doing in this, in general, this conversation today, the role of gut health and prebiotics in your diet, just to raise the collective awareness, because we're not going to, sit back and wait for the medical field to be as informed to be able to, prescribe what it is that we're doing. I hope eventually that we'll get there, but I think we have a lot of people to help before we get to that point. So we're taking it.
And I'm not super optimistic, and I'll tell you why. And I'll just use, I get hit up all the time for business consulting, business coaching. And when somebody brings me a thing, there's two things. One of the foundational conversations is, okay, when it comes to monetizing this thing, given the cost of acquiring customers, there are two basic models. One is the high ticket transactional model of how can I create the demand or agitate the pain or create the willingness to pay as much as possible for the product, as kind of call it the acute version, it's a one-time fix and I'll pay out the wazoo for it. Or you have a recurring revenue model where you're okay, we need to find, call it chronic solutions, something that's like a drip that they're going to be on forever and they're going to keep paying you month after month, and it can be reasonably priced, but then you have to worry about your IP and say, is this something that eventually they could go get somewhere else cheaper? So then you're so if you actually apply what's very sound business logic to the medical profession and say, okay, either go for the high ticket transactional acute solutions, which the closer somebody is to death, the higher price you can place on their medical intervention.
Right.
But those people only exist if we allow them to get closer to death.
Right.
Or the recurring revenue model only works on patentable solutions like pharmaceuticals. So, and in everything, you follow the money. There is this incredible financial incentive in the medical profession. And I don't think most people get this. I don't think they're doing it intentionally. That is we have to, the entire economics are propped up by these super high priced acute interventions of people that are near death, like chemotherapy and brain transplants, or actually, I don't think they do brain transplants, but I got a little carried away. But you know what I mean? Or if it's going to be a month, like a recurring revenue model, it's got to be something we can patent. And so I believe that it's at the end of the day, who endows these medical schools? I guarantee you there is some rich old asshole who is actively resisting what it would look like to see the world change in the way that it frankly should. And that's where I actually think you have a huge opportunity ahead of you that to be that change driver in the world. Because I don't think
I share the sentiment. The incentives and the infrastructure is so established that moving that, I think, is a monumental effort to win. An ability to adjust those incentives make, you follow the money, right? And so this is why we're not dependent on necessarily a medical driven pathway, right, for us to try to have impact. Like, let's make this accessible and as convenient and as functional as possible, and get it out there. So that's our approach.
Cool. I think it sounds like we align. So, hey, listen, I we're out of time. This, I would love to, this is one I would love to keep having a conversation. But you mentioned that you guys are producing a lot of content. You guys are out there educating. Can you share with the audience how they can go get access, like everything you offer, the content, the product, your brand, like where can the world go find you?
Yeah, the best place is on our site, supergut.com. And obviously you can check out the products, but actually read up on the science, and we have a lot of content on our blog there as well. You can also check us out on social, where we're very, very active and engaging. So it's at Supergut on, Instagram and TikTok and Twitter. We're also just opened up on Amazon, and we're about to start to open up into physical retail as well, because I really believe in accessibility, right, to help bring these products to the masses. But for now, best place is checking us up on supergut.com.
And it's only a 4-year-old company.
That's right. So yeah, we're just getting started, Jeff. We're just getting started.
Yeah, that's amazing. That's amazing. Congratulations on all your success, and it's well deserved, because you're following your purpose and you're doing great work. So
thank you so much, Jeff. Really, really enjoyed the conversation. Thanks so much, man.
Yeah, no, it's been great having you. Like I said, this checks a box for me, because I've been on this product for 2 years. And you've been a wonderful guest, highly informed. Thank you again for embodying my whole philosophy around entrepreneurship. That was serendipitous. And so yeah, thanks for being a great guest, man.
Thank you so much, Jeff. All right, man.
Okay, and to all you viewers and listeners out there, you're the best part of this show. You're why I do it every day, and I can't wait to see you next time. Take care.
If you loved that episode, then you're definitely going to love this one. Check it out.
The longer we go from the time we stop eating at night to the time we start eating the next day impacts our ability to make energy properly. That sounds intimidating.